Morena Tato, welcome everybody to our Ōtorohanga District Council extraordinary meeting. It's good to see a full house here today. If everybody could open their agendas to the opening karakia, would be appreciated. Well, good to go. Mā te whakapono, mā te tūmana.
Mā te titiro, mā te mai, o te mai tai, mā te manawinawi, mā te aroha, ka tae e tātou.
It appears we have no apologies this morning, which is great. I don't believe there's any late items. Is there anything on the agenda? Well, there's only one thing on the agenda. Does anybody have to declare a conflict of interest? I'd be surprised at this point if they did. So moving on to our report, item 247, preferred model for delivery of water services, deliberations report. Welcome Nadia, Mark and Anne.
Morning, Your Worship and councillors. I've obviously got Anne with me today and Nadia helped to present this report today, and we've probably said this numerous occasions before, but I'll say it again. This is a team effort to put this work together. It's my name and Nadia's might be sitting on the report, but it's by no reflection of the work that's going on behind the scenes. So you have in front of you today the deliberations report from the hearings meeting earlier last month. So this is an information report. There's actually no decision to be made today. Just keep hearing talking. So you'll recall in April, the council resolved to go out for consultation on the preferred delivery model for water services. And after that 4 weeks consultation, council received 4 submissions. And today we've outlined those submissions within this report. You'll see from the submissions that there is an alignment between what council's objectives were set out at the start and what the submitters have said, which is quite comforting to know that we've been on the right path and the right direction. So I think that's a good takeaway from what we received from the public. The responses that we've put in there are staff responses, which you'll see detailed in appendix. They are only staff responses, so they are obviously subject to any amendments that council wishes to make on those, and we'll take any of that feedback on board and make any required amendments. So I won't go into too much detail today, but the next steps is obviously on the 24th of June, we will bring another report to council on a decision around the delivery model and confirm the responses to the submitters as outlined in this report. So without any further, I think I will leave it at that and answer any questions.
Thanks, Mark. Councillors, any questions in terms of the response to the submitters that the staff have provided there? I'm happy with those. So if there's any questions or any amendments that other councillors wish to contribute, now's your opportunity. Councillor Jeffries.
Thanks, Your Worship. Morning, Nadia and Anne. It was really just a top of mind thing. I just wondered in terms of responding to submitters 2 and 4 that whether it's worth mentioning the fact that by going into a CCO gives us an enhanced opportunity for future capital projects like the Carpio Ice, for example. And secondly, that participation in the CCO may provide us with a greater capacity for debt funding of other community projects. So I just thought that might add a little bit of weight to the response. Yep.
Thank you, Councillor. Further comments, Councillor Dale?
I was just thinking, if you do that, Max, you're providing for the false hope. I think they're going to get a waste of water, so it's kind It's not going to be up to us to decide. Yeah, I understand that, but I mean, yeah, if you sort of, because then you might mention, you realise the water rates might go up. Might go down, they might go up. So, you know, you're kind of like, it's like this whole thing, it's all, yeah, analysis or, you know, assumptions. So, yeah, I'm going to write that in. It's just my.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor Williams.
Just a comment on the, I know it's a small number, but good to see, I guess, that there was only a small number and that the submitter who was looking for enhanced status quo, I think I'm comfortable that the issues that they're raising about local voice and representation, I mean, that's been top of mind for us all of the time, and it actually was part of how the whole Mayoral Forum and iwi Leaders Three Waters process started. So I think I'm confident enough that we're not going to lose that emphasis on local voice. We might have to fight it sometimes and push, but it is there top of mind.
Thank you. Yeah, just to add to what Councillor Williams is saying, we're talking about the appointment for the governance roles with Waikato Water done well, and I mean there's a lot of discussion yesterday about iwi involvement in the selection process. So I'm not sure where to leave the meeting. There's a fire emergency, so we had to leave the building yesterday afternoon. But yeah, I think just to add to what Councillor Williams is saying, you know, there's a lot of work done with iwi Leaders through Three Waters, and the conversation has kind of gone a wee bit quiet in recent times with Waikato Water done well. But I'm sure it'll be brought back into the discussions around the table.
It's more of a comment. The submitter that said about status quo and borrowing it scaled is not guaranteed, blah, blah, blah. I'm just wondering if that submitter actually knows that we're already carrying, what, is it 1 million of debt that on our water at the moment?
Yeah, that's.
And
that's
it is a huge,
neutral.
yeah, just on our Ōtorohanga water, we already have. It was a deficit. We borrowed to pay, yeah. So we've got that loan at the moment, and it's really hard on our community, and it's going to get harder with increase. And yeah, I'm gutted that as soon as it hands over, it's just going to go up again. But it's the way of the world.
So sorry, just for clarification there, Councillor, was that to
I don't know what it was. It was just a comment. I don't, in our community board meeting yesterday, we've made our recommendation to council, not, yeah, a bit lower than what it was in the report, but we've also made a recommendation that there's some strong communication that goes out before it's adopted about the state of our water, like why rates are going up, why the water rates are going up, and sort of so the users understand why it's not going up. We're not just putting it up for the sake of it. Like, I don't think many people in our community actually know that our water account was in deficit. So it's about bringing them along for the ride and educating them, because yeah.
Thank you. And I mean, we saw the same with the rural water schemes as well, that weren't quite prepared to confront their deficit, and they were looking at increases that weren't going to actually ever get on top of the debt that was there. And the reality is these deficits have to be taken care of and addressed. And I think anybody, again, this is the unfortunate part, that thinks that water prices are going to stay reasonably close to where they are now is absolutely kidding themselves. And the meeting that I had with the minister, anybody who believes that the enhanced status quo or going alone is going to be beneficial, I'll watch from a distance, but I'd be surprised if there's not a lot of pressure put on. There will be a lot of pressure put on by the economic regulator to ensure that we all kind of conform in some way or another to this collaborative response to water delivery. So it's not going to be straightforward. And I think those councils that have been struggling to make a decision are going to be on the back foot for a long, long time. And they'll have to get up to speed. So, yeah.
Just another comment I'd like to make is that, you know, going forward, people that can afford it will probably put in their own water catchment tanks and stuff. I know I will when I can. And then that's going to push water prices up even more because we still have to pay to get the water to everyone's house. So sadly, people that can, it's going to push the price up for water that people can't afford to pay for.
That's been a big discussion with the rural water schemes as well, that you get some of the big farmers will decide to pull out of the water schemes, and it's going to put an increased pressure on those other users, which is, if they're looking for any advantages in what could have water done well, it's the scale aspect is going to be a benefit to ensure that those price increases aren't as big, because you'll be able to filter across all the people that are using through price harmonisation. Councillor Tamaki.
Yeah, I just want to add another comment on the end of that. So I think what made it clear for me is that when you're talking about the logo change, and there's lots of little rumours in the community, and then thank you, Max, for coming on and putting some clarity in there, building some narrative around the direction of where the logo is going, actually put them at ease. And I think it's that whole, when we're talking about water, when we're talking about change, it's building those narratives and making sure that we, we've already said when it no longer becomes sustainable for our community, that's our decision to do something else. But I think giving them that reassurance all the time so that we are working towards eventually it being sustainable for a long time, not just today and tomorrow, like well into the future. Building those narratives together is going to be the biggest, I see my job as an elected member into our community to say, actually, yes, we are going to have to change, but this is how we can make the change. And when it becomes no longer sustainable, that's what I will be telling them. Then another decision is to be made. But I think, we need to really stand on what we're saying and say, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing. And when it doesn't fit that, then we make the next decision. So, yeah, I just think that logo stuff was a great example of some of this water stuff's going to happen the same way, I think. So we just need to all work together.
I think the challenge with the water stuff is the reason why it's such a small amount of submitters as well, because it's such a big complex issue that people can't get their head around, which leads to not to. So you take a logo where it's their low-hanging fruit and people have an opinion immediately. So it's only when we're really confronted with those increases you're talking about that people will become engaged. So it's going to be an interesting next couple of years. Councillor Dow.
You sort of mentioned scale might solve all the problems. I was in my decided was in Australia last week and driving through New South Wales, some rural towns, like quite big towns, and they all have big signs, boil your water. They had got the scale that we're talking about. So that's just the scary thing for me. If the reason why we should join is the reason why we shouldn't join, is basically we're going to give this similar people that have been on for the wrong sort of reasons or the right reasons, haven't quite got the water right in the past, you're going to give them the ability to borrow twice as much money, so they can get us twice as badly in the shit in the future than what some of them are now. So it's kind of, that's why I'm more on the enhanced status quo, so we can keep a handle on the checkbook and the costs. And scale is definitely not always the answer. Controlling your costs is the answer. So, and I think we can control it better. So I quite agree with the lady that came in and talked. Locally is more my thing, but just really think about that. It's not that easy to put things together and make it work. It's going to cost a hell of a lot of money in the short term, more than what their assumptions are might be.
What are our debt? What are our debts at the moment? Like our deficits at the moment that we're trying to, it's over $1 million for town. What is it on the rural ones? So we're not keeping a handle on our.
I could give you some rough numbers there, but there's some people in the room that can give us some really accurate numbers. But I think out of all the rural water schemes, they're all in deficit, correct, Brendan? And then you've got your wastewater activity, which is in deficit, correct, Brendan? And it also has quite a considerable capital loan. and the water, and I'm not sure about Carpia off the top of my head. It definitely has some CapEx work that it has loans for.
So that's the sort of thing I think is really important as part of the story. We're not on top of our debt. We're not as bad as other councils, are we? But we're not.
I think through you, your worship, the other thing that I'm hoping will become apparent as we move into workshops on the shareholders agreement is that the level of control that council does have over its own company. So the CCO is your company. You get to appoint the directors. You have shareholders forum. You have a statement of expectations. I'm not sure how familiar councillors are with this kind of arrangement. We had an interesting discussion with South Waikato District Council. We've taken their elected members right back to the what is a CCO. You know, we've been involved in the airport company, so we've probably got more, but this, yeah, so, and especially a multi-council CCO. But yeah, I think it's important to understand the control that we actually do have in terms of them not running them up with the checkbook. Essentially.
And I was just going to say, like, with the town supply being in deficit so much, I mean, that has a lot to do with previous elected members saying, oh no, well, we won't recoup it this time. We can't put the prices up. So yeah, it's sort of like a catch-20, you know, like we want to keep it local, but we haven't done that great doing it that way.
Councillor Williams.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but we can't run it without debt. Like, you know, long term and intergenerational, we're spreading the load, and so I don't think we can give the community false hope in that, or misinformation that the debt that's there now is all bad debt. No, there's things you can't do unless you do.
Yeah,
Have a mortgage to buy your house and
get that,
yeah.
but we've had past community boards that decided to start repaying back. And so it just accumulated onto each other.
It's about how we control debt, isn't it?
Yeah. So, yeah.
So, yes, Councillor Prendergast.
Through you, your worship, my perception of the council control organisation would be, building on what Tanya's just said, that the accountability would be greater, and that we've got a letter of expectation from the combined councils that the board of directors then has to adhere to. So I am sincerely hoping that the expenditure will be put through a huge amount more rigorous processes, and that it will be very justified.
I think to add to that, you're absolutely correct. The fear that we don't have local control is how it'll probably be our same staff doing the same job that they're doing every day, but with a different jacket on, and being paid by somebody else. So it's, you know, the fear there for all the councils involved in this establishment of the CCO, that you'd have staff all disappearing off to Hamilton or wherever head office may be, and that is where the kind of the distribution centre is. But the reality is, everybody was, each council was talking about the local delivery of their water services to ensure that their staff stay where they are. So there's so many things that won't change. People, for everybody in town or on the streets, won't notice any difference apart from possibly a vehicle logo going around. The maintenance will be the same, the servicing, everything will be the same as what it was, but under a different regime.
Max, if it stays the same, the costs are going to be the same, but now you can have a whole lot of admin costs above it, boards, and so something has to change, otherwise.
Yeah, so you also get, as we said, the advantage of price harmonisation. Of prices go up a lot, and people pull out, then you can spread that cost over a lot. The procurement aspect, where you can get.
I understand it's not like the Three Waters where they were going to, all of the staff were guaranteed to keep their jobs. There's no that, is there?
Through your worship. So at the moment, the chief executives are working through what the structure is around job guarantee. versus job offer versus other. So yeah, I can't say kind of any more than that, except it's it's being worked on at the moment. And why would we give away technically competent staff that we have invested a lot of money in training? Why would we not want them to move into the new entity at some point so that they could deliver the same service to our community that they've been delivering? It wouldn't make sense. So we want to keep as many people as we can.
I think the big thing about this, and it was brought up in yesterday's risk and insurance meeting as well by Councillor Jeffries, was the concern that we're going into this CCO with the knowledge that we won't be any worse off than what we are under an enhanced status quo system. So we've got to believe in the system and believe in the formation of the CCO that is the case. Because again, prices aren't going to be the same going to go up, because we've already seen what the legislative requirements are going to be and the accountability. So as long as we can be assured that we're no worse off than what we are or what we would be if we did enhanced status quo, then that's all we can hope for at this point. Yes, Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, thank you, Bishop. I got a bit of a shock at the community board meeting last night when actually figures were presented to us over price rises and both fixed charges and consumption charges. We have been living in a false economy here, unfortunately, for want of a better word, because when Brendan presented us some comparisons to other councils, we are way down low as far as price charging is concerned, and we've been like this for a long time. So this is where we've got to with our deficits and why those are happening. So it sort of changed my mind a little bit on it when I saw what other councils were charging. The council south of us is double easily water charges. So yeah. But that's what I mean. But that is reflecting their costs. So, and I don't think we have been. So this is where I think we've been behind the eight ball for so long that you say that the water charges are going up. We go to the CCO. There's a potential they could go further if we stay at the status quo. So it's as I said, we're living in a false economy for quite a while. People sitting on their hands, and we're paying the price for it now. So I think that's the biggest thing that I got out of that last night.
I wouldn't go as far as saying a false economy. I think our deficits are still considerably lower than most the other councils are. So we probably always have to be aware and up to speed with where those payments are. But you're absolutely right. There's always a balancing act there, and we've seen what prices have done. We don't want to use COVID as a lever, but it certainly seems to have been a real change in what procurement costs have been around the country, staffing costs, everything has kind of changed. What the world kind of spun on its office axis for a little while, and we're just trying to catch up. But yeah, there's a bit of catch up to do, but our deficits would indicate that we're not so far behind.
Yeah, but I think that even though we're not so far behind, even when we're increasing prices, we're still incurring a deficit every year regardless. So that's just adding up. I remember $1 million that Councillor Christensen talked about, that's increasing by $250,000 a year at the current charges. So I mean, we're thanks to Brendan for bringing those figures yesterday. So it sort of hit home a bit, the reality of having to try and run it ourselves. And then you say the regulations they'll kill us if we stay where we are. And I mean, it's always nice to keep these things in house, but I don't think we can sustain it.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Jeffries.
Just a question, if I may. When we get to the stage where we've assessed whether going forward is financially sustainable or not, are we talking about financial sustainability for the council, or are we talking about financial sustainability for the community?
Councillors, the community.
For the community, is it?
Through you, I believe it's both. I guess it's balancing
It's a pathway that ensures that our assets are fit for the future in terms of delivering what they need to deliver, and our water services are able to deliver safe, potable water, and that wastewater is disposed of appropriately. On a price path that is realistic, and using the word affordable is a little bit tricky, but that is kind of how it's couched and how it's framed up. And to Councillor Hughes' point, our community has been used to a certain price path, whereas we've looked at the neighbouring councils and they are different. So it might be a bigger adjustment for ours than it would be, whether we stay with the enhanced status quo or go with the CCO. I think there's still going to need to be some sort of adjustment, because the government is going to be looking at our forward works program and what needs to be done to comply with the environmental and health regulations, and whether we've actually budgeted to be able to afford that, and how it's going to be paid for. So yeah.
It's an interesting discussion, because I think where I was coming from, and I think you touched on it, but was I'm saying that it may well be that it's financially sustainable for us by getting rid of the water to the entity and just concentrating on other things, as opposed to the additional charges that are coming from the water entity back to the users may make it financially unsustainable for them. So there is a differentiation between the two, I think. And I was just curious as to when we will know or make that decision, or who's going to make it. Or yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, not pretty times ahead.
That's why the communication, we need to start working on the communication. Like, our water has been pretty cheap.
Yeah.
And we
Yes, and that was,
take them along for the ride.
and that was really apparent when you saw the pricing, which was talked about, discussing your meeting last night. I mean, we were pretty much half the price of most of the other councils that are looking at joining the CCO. So yeah, there is some price adjustment there, and it's
We shouldn't be charging just because that's what the opposition charges. We should be charging what it costs, and building some debt to service our equipment.
But we're not charging what it costs.
So we're not charging, and how many long-term plans we've done, and nothing, this is just popping up new now that we're not charging enough. I think I remember we put about 9 million into doing the water mains up around Mountain View and around. And as far as I was concerned, and even the report said that we're pretty much on top of it. But so those pipes of Mountain View that we spent 9 million on a couple of years ago, they should be good for another 60 or 70 years. So I mean, if we just keep investing in it's just, you invest in your capital equipment and you charge so much, it doesn't matter. You don't bring up the opposition and say, what are you charging today? I'm going to charge the same as you. That's very not right at all. It's not an auction system, it's a cost. Plus keeping your maintenance.
Yeah, I think through your worship, I don't see our neighbouring councils as opposition for a start, and particularly if we're going to end up in a combined CCO, should you choose to that path, very much working together on a whole bunch of other things to keep costs low that may push you right out of your comfort zone when we start presenting them, because in order to keep rates low, we're probably going to have to combine some things with neighbouring councils. So you've got that. These tensions. The other thing is, I would say that we have brought issues like we're not taking in enough revenue to keep the operating deficits. Like, we've presented to council several times. I would just say, if I could be a bit political, you don't win an election by putting prices up, investing millions in infrastructure and having debt. So you've got that tension in local government as well, where you want to do the right thing by the community, but you also are looking, if you are standing again, to what might get you back in. So there, and that's been talked about openly.
Yeah, you want to do the right thing for the community long term. Don't you? I mean, obviously you have a view on it. It's really got to do the election, I don't think, but anyway, long term you invest in your company and you invest when you can. When good times you invest more. And the other thing with this water is a lot of the things that drink water now thing is dairy cows. We haven't been able to get it shown to us about whether the farming industry is subsidising the townspeople, or townspeople are subsidising the farming. So, I mean, it could be if they price harmonise and used like the water rates that some of the other councils use, that could cost a lot for the dairy farmers too. So, I mean, that's it's another tricky one. So.
Yeah, and I'd like to have faith in the board of directors or the governors that are actually making those decisions and the conversation they're having with their stakeholders as well. I mean, we're here assuming that it's always going to be a bad result. We're going into this, we've been directed into this by the government to hopefully get better results and ensuring that the infrastructure around the country is looked after. As a council, we made a decision a number of years ago and we saw that there's going to be this big capital investment needed ahead of us. It was more like a bloody wall instead of just a nice curve, which is why we brought a lot of the capital we export in the water space to ensure that we didn't have these issues further down the road, which we're in a good place, but you're absolutely right in some regards about we probably haven't put the increases there that we've needed to at times, and probably back to Tanya's point, a lot of the time that's political. And we've seen it on the rural water schemes where councillors had to overrule a water scheme decision about what their increases were going to be because they're never going to get on top of their deficit. In fact, they're going into further deficit because they didn't want to confront that as well. So it's not just around the council table or the community board table, but it's actually about the users in our rural communities as well. But it's a bloody hard decision because everybody says, oh, we can afford a 5% increase. Reality is they needed to address a 10% increase. And if it was 10% then and they only did 5%, the next year it's probably going to be 15%, which is where you start digging that hole for yourself. So, yeah, I mean, for everybody going forward and sitting here now, it is about hopefully making the courageous decisions that are going to give us a good, sustainable future for the residents of Ōtorohanga. Whether that there is as an independent council, whether that's an amalgamated council further down the track, hey, time will find that one out as well, if that is what it takes to keep costs down. Anyway. Any further questions, councillors?
Just one last comment, if I may.
Are you sure?
I think that we lose sight of the fact sometimes that the community actually has a responsibility itself to inform itself about a lot of these things. And we shouldn't be just, what I'm trying to say is that, people get all grumpy about things that council do or say or whatever. But it's only because they're not informed, and I think the responsibility of being informed doesn't rest entirely with us. I think it rests with the community to inform themselves in a lot of cases. So I just want to make that point going that, see, we only got 4 submissions for this. So what does that tell you?
But it's a real challenging decision and people really don't know how to get under most.
4 submissions on something that's probably one of the most important things we're going to make a decision on in years. Yeah.
Look, we know full well as councillors that we sit around the table and we can have a 15-minute or 20-minute discussion on something about a town hall, but we pass over roading investment, which is millions and millions of dollars in about 5 seconds because we don't understand the complexity of it. We're not sure how the cost structure works. So we have absolute faith in Mark and his team that they're going to get things spot on. But if it's something that we see on the street, it becomes quite personal and becomes a long discussion. So again, as councillors, we had to be brave. We actually have to look a bit deeper in rather than just looking at those low-hanging fruit, which are the easy decisions to make. All right, we have a staff recommendation in front of us that Ōtorohanga District Council received the report titled Preferred Model for Delivery of Water Services Deliberations Report Document Number 827430, noting A, the staff recommendation suggests response to submitters, and B, the decision on the final preferred water service delivery option for inclusion in ODC's water service delivery plan will be made on 24th of June 2025. I'd like to move that. Second, Councillor Williams, all in favour? Against? Carried. Nadia, Mark, and
We'll include that.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask, will what's been spoken about today will be reflected in the responses.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Nadia Markanen, thank you again. I'm sure we'll be thanking you again many more times going forward. Because it's still only just the beginning.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Okay. So that's it.
Yeah, yeah.
Closing karakia. Back to your karakia, everybody, please. Mā te whakapono,
Mā te tūmanako, mā te titiro, mā te whakapono, mā te maitahi, mā te manawanui, mā te aroha, ka taia e tātou.
Kia ora, thank you, everybody, and I'll declare the meeting closed.